In a 2018 video for Vox, journalist Ezra Klein discussed how, quote, states routinely amend and even rewrite their constitutions. On average, each state has had 3 constitutions, and Louisiana, they've had 11, unquote. He argued that the federal constitution should be amended more like the states in order to improve our democracy. This is an interesting thesis, but one period of Indiana's history shows just how hard this process can be, so much so that it can lead to a constitutional crisis. In this episode of From the Vault, we'll uncover the largely forgotten story of how the Indiana Constitution almost changed overnight by the stroke of a governor's pen, and the forces that shut it all down. In its 2 centuries as a state, Indiana has had 2 constitutions, one from statehood in 1816 and a revised constitution from 1851. In the wintry months of 1911, there was almost a third. Thomas R. Marshall, progressive governor of Indiana from 1909 to 1913, stressed in his January 5, 1911 message to the General Assembly that a wide array of constitutional reforms were necessary to improve Indiana's government. Specifically, he called for extending the length of the legislature's session from December through May and limiting the right to vote of quote-unquote foreign-born citizens. Like with many progressive reforms of the period, you get some good, more time to complete legislation, and you get some bad, disenfranchising immigrants' voting rights. However, changing Indiana's constitution is difficult. Article 16 notes that for an amendment to be added to the Constitution, it must be passed by 2 sessions of the Indiana General Assembly and then approved by a majority of the voting public. This made adding amendments a long and arduous process, especially if more than one was being considered. With all of this in mind, Marshall and the Democratic majorities in the General Assembly decided to attempt a workaround. This is Senate Bill 407, also known as the Marshall Constitution. Democratic State Senator Evan B. Stotzenberg introduced the bill on February 23, 1911. The House passed the bill on March 1st with a vote of 59 to 37, and the Senate passed it on March 2nd by a vote of 60 to 39. Governor Marshall signed it the very next day. This revised constitution comprised over 20 reforms, including authorizing the General Assembly to pass a workmen's compensation program, increasing the membership of the House to 130, expanding the number of Indiana Supreme Court justices from 5 to 11, lengthening the duration of the legislative session, and stricter voting rules. Despite passing the General Assembly, this new constitution faced swift and powerful opposition in the form of Indianapolis lawyer John Dye. He filed a suit in the Marion County Circuit Court against the new constitution, arguing that, quote, 1, the General Assembly lacked the authority to prepare and submit to the electorate a new constitution, and 2, the method of submission violated constitutionally prescribed procedures, unquote. Judge Charles Remster agreed with Dye, arguing that the delegation of power is specific and empowers the General Assembly to propose one amendment or any number of amendments to the Constitution. This power does not specifically authorize the proposal of an entire new Constitution. The state appealed the case all the way to the Indiana Supreme Court. In their landmark ruling in Ellingham v. Dye on July 5, 1912, the Supreme Court ruled the Marshall Constitution unconstitutional. In their decision, the court firmly established that Article 16 could not be circumvented by legislative action. In other words, you cannot change the Constitution by statute alone. The impact of the Marshall Constitution lingered for decades. Many of its reforms, including voting regulations and changes to the General Assembly's schedule, became laws and constitutional provisions in their own right. It also benefited Marshall himself, who gained a national profile for his progressive instrumentation of power. In 1912, he was tapped to be Woodrow Wilson's running mate, and then served 8 years as his vice president. The Marshall Constitution and its aftermath reinforced a profound lesson for both public leaders and citizens. Constitutions can be bent, but they cannot be easily broken. If Hoosiers believe it is in their best interest to pass a constitutional amendment or propose a new constitution, they will do so under the guidelines of Article 16. As examples, the 2016 amendment to protect the right to hunt and fish and the 2018 Balanced Budget Amendment followed this exact approach. So, while Ezra Klein's view of constitutional malleability is possible in theory, the Marshall Constitution shows that it's a lot harder in practice. Thanks for watching. Please click like if you enjoyed this video and make sure to hit that subscribe button to keep updated on all new videos. Finally, what changes would you propose to the Indiana Constitution? Or do you think it should stay the same? Leave your answers in the comments below. We want to hear from you.